Aren't we? Gee, what did we walk into? Guys, welcome to the Noobcast Podcast's Game Club. My name is Miss Michelle Jean, joined by the rest of the Noobcast crew, while we discuss, Super Hot.
Super hot.
So, oh, geez.
Introductions are disposable.
If you've been around the podcast, you know who we are. I'd like to welcome to the show Hipponymous.
Who am I? Who are you?
I don't know.
Where am I?
Did you get drunk again?
Hi, guys.
Damn it.
You've entered into a strange dimension.
Look, I played Super Hot for like 4 hours, and I don't know what's happening.
That sounds about right. Hippo, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So 4 hours, that sounds about right.
Yeah, that was actually a big controversy, believe it or not, at launch. When everybody was reviewing it, a bunch of us didn't actually know what the price was going to be. And then it was like, oh, this is like $20. We cleared it all in like a weekend. So it was like, I mean, there's lots of things you can replay with, but nobody really was certain, is this enough or is it not? It was a big debate.
That's a good question. That's a good point. Elijah, the Unabridged gamer, welcome to the show.
Hello. Yes, sorry. I'm very eager to talk about this one.
That is just fine by me. As it may be, I think it's still better to have you go ahead and lead the whole discussion after we welcome Dizagy to the show as well.
Yes, indeed. I will say, after playing Super Hot, I have actually had a couple of dreams containing this game, which is the creepiest thing on earth.
That's approaching
Did you violate
creepypasta.
the EULA?
I mean, I don't think I violated it. I might have bent the hereby known as truth a couple of times in saying that, but yeah, I think it's fine. I don't think I'm in that much trouble.
Nice.
Well, when you punch yourself, well, no.
Forget
Hey,
the spoilers
hey.
after the...
Hey, go. Go on. Elijah. You have free reign. I'll shut up.
Okay, so this is a new thing that we're trying with Game Club, and first up we're going to talk about the gameplay, which will be spoiler-free, and we'll talk about all the sort of fun stuff, or potentially unfun stuff, depending on how we feel about it, with the game. Then we'll touch on the story. So if you want to skip spoilers after we get to gameplay, there it is. But it's honestly, I think even if we tell you the plot for this game, you're still going to have questions. And then we're going to wrap up with our personal thoughts and feelings and whether or not we like it or not. Thank you for joining us along for the ride. And to get things started, and yes, Poison Dapple is going to be puntastic probably. Although my pun's been pretty bad tonight.
No.
So, to start things off,
what about the people? Yeah, I was going to say, for anybody who hasn't played Super Hot at all, has no idea what's going on, has been living under a rock for a while, or in a pineapple under the sea.
Yes, don't get that song started in my head, man. Okay, so for those who don't know, Super Hot is a game where it's a first-person shooter, but it doesn't play like any first-person shooter you've played before, in that time only moves when you move. So that means, like, you can, in some versions, you can actually grab the bullets out of the air or slice them with a katana. You can basically be Neo in the Matrix, but even more powerful. It makes something like the original Fear look like Call of Duty by comparison.
I could not fly, for the record. I could not fly. So I refute that Neo comment right out of the gate.
Okay, from the first one.
He flew in the first one.
He only did in the post-credit bit.
So was the Stinger. So what? I don't care. He flew in the first one.
In that bank scene, he doesn't fly. And that is basically what happens here, is that all these scenarios, you're fighting these glass-like bears. That's the thing. It's like you're in an art house exhibit, but with the violence turned up to a Tarantino movie and the aggressive pacing of Hotline Miami. And it gets very meta very quickly with the storytelling. It's very inspired by 90s gaming and IRC chat and all that. there's a lot of that going on and just sort of enmeshed in the whole experience. So as a result, there's all sorts of additional stuff that they have alongside this thing, even a big VR thing that actually isn't the SuperHot VR. There is a SuperHot VR. Had the pleasure of trying it briefly. It is good, but that's not what the one we're talking about today. We are talking about the main one that came out on PC, was an actual Kickstarter success, so kudos to the developers for that. And weirdly enough, it started up as a pitch, not a game jam game. It just was sort of just they tossed out a few quick levels, and everybody's like, "Make more!" And then it was like, "Okay, we can do that. We can do that."
Nice.
Sadly, they did not get enough Kickstarter points for a level designer. I so wish we had gotten that. But it's been a pretty well received thing, and it was on Twitch Prime recently, so it was just perfect for us to talk about. Is there anything that I missed there?
No, I think you summed it up.
I think the thing that you omitted that I really, really like is that you didn't really call it like a first-person shooter, because I think that doesn't accurately represent the game. I feel like at the core of the game, it's a puzzle game.
Yeah.
And you get it in the form of a shooter, which is brilliant.
Yes, it's fantastic to see, and that's what I think we're seeing a lot more happen with combat systems, because, I mean, with the Batman Arkham games, it was a very similar thing. It was like, here's all these things you have to counter, think about it logically, take it apart. And then SuperHot was like, okay, what if we do that and then amp it up to 11 and throw all sorts of glass objects in people's faces, including tiny glass dogs in an art exhibit. Because that was a thing.
I laughed at that part. That was great.
But what was y'all's initial impression from the gameplay when you first booted it up?
My initial thought was it was definitely a puzzle style in game. I also likened it to Frozen Synapse. The whole idea that you could not, or like time didn't move unless you moved, which was actually a mechanic within Frozen Synapse, which was another game I enjoyed. Also a puzzle in the way of shooting and such. So I thought, having that first person's perspective of a similar game was kind of neat. And really had to be creative about some of your exits as you got further into levels, like when you got stuck in an elevator, for instance. I heard that was some people's favorite level.
Yeah, definitely took a few dozen deaths before figuring that one out.
Elevator action?
There's a lot of action in that elevator.
Hippo's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about, so my mind is where you think it is. Anyway, continue, please.
No, I thought overall, like, gameplay was really interesting, and it was well paced too, right? Like, as the levels went up in difficulty, like, the pacing didn't like take this weird like cliffside hill approach to the difficulty. Like, it was a gradual progression of difficulty, and it felt well paced at that point, all the way up to that last level. Which, I mean, how long did I spend on that? An hour, maybe.
It took long for everybody. I want you to know, from day one, we all had very strong words for that level.
Yeah. I felt like the pacing, it was interesting because there would be like a couple of levels that were like super easy. You could just walk through, and then all of a sudden there's this one level where you're like, what? I can't pass this. I thought I was better than this. The game taught me that I was better than this. Why do I keep dying? And then you kind of die 20 times and you kind of understand what you're doing. You die a couple more times and you're like, oh, I get it now. Okay. It's just luck at this point. Like, if I kill this guy and this dude shoots and this other dude shoots, I have to move over this way. But if I do that, then a guy throws a katana at my face. Yeah.
Curious question. What was the most difficult level for everybody in the group? For me, it was most certainly the elevator.
Really?
The batting.
It was the first elevator, or was there more elevators? I don't know.
Just one.
Just the one. There's only one elevator.
Yeah,
and I just had the worst time with it.
Really?
Yeah.
I had died maybe 6 times. Maybe. I should have streamed this. I should have streamed it.
There's a lot of people on the internet who would hate you then, though, if you did, because the fact that you got through there with only 6 deaths.
It wasn't, to me, it was annoying, but it wasn't that difficult. Like, obviously, you go for the dude who's got the gun pointed directly at you, and then go to the guy who's bringing his gun up to shoot you, and then you go punch the other guy who's just like, and then you grab the gun, and then kill everyone. You know, just simple. It's simple.
Just kill everyone.
Look, I come from a background of FPS and online FPS, so like it wasn't that difficult for me. Like I very much understood what was happening, and after a couple of tries and like a couple of failures, of course, it wasn't too difficult. But there's definitely other ones that I tried, like especially the one where you jump down with the katana and you kill the 3 guys. And then like a bunch of dudes spawn at the top of the stairs and come down. I died so many times because instead of going into the stupid room underneath the stairs like a normal human, I was like, no, I'm going to try to stay out here and kill everybody. And eventually I just did it that way, but I died a lot for some stupid reason. It wasn't even that hard.
Like I said, my biggest one was actually the one where you get first introduced to the bat, because I mean the elevator, I was able to.
I love the bat.
The bat one, it was more about spacing myself and timing it right. I kept getting the timing wrong, so it's like, oh yeah, somebody punched you in the shoulder. Oh, somebody punched you in the shin. That went on for a while.
My shin, no, it's my weakness.
Here's the thing. Here's the worst thing. The most challenging thing for me with Superhot, back when I originally played it for review, was when I accidentally triggered the one, because a little bit behind the scenes when you're doing game reviews, they typically give you access to a very late beta build, like right there, right before launch. It's essentially the same thing. There's like a day 1 patch maybe absent. I foolishly was really near the end of the game, and I was like, you know what? I want to see what the patch does. And it wiped all of my progress, so I had to clear the entire thing again in one day.
Well, at least you know how to beat them, though. Because, like Michelle was saying, it is very much a puzzle game.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
The mechanics are actually fun. Like, playing the game is fun. So, although I could understand when you're trying to review it, and you're not quite through, but you're almost through, and then you have to start all over again.
That's the worst.
And you want to get that review out the day of launch. I can understand it being a little frustrating.
Right?
That was fun. And then some of the video footage corrupted also. So that was a long day.
Ooh.
But moving on, talking about the game in the present.
That would be brutal. Ugh.
Body swapping.
That was a late game edition. Technically, I guess it would sort of count as a spoiler, but really, it's something that needs to be discussed because there's some people who like swear by it, and there are some who just. I mean, I was even talking to Crafty, and she's like, "Yeah, I've had to remember to use it because it happens so late, and you get so basically almost zealous with the certain elements that it's like, okay, these are the rules of the game. This is how I solve things." And it's like, and now you're thinking with portals or possession, rather.
Yeah, definitely. I can understand it being when you stop introducing new mechanics, and then you go for a lot of the game, and then you're like, surprise, you can now do this. It can be really difficult, even for me, and a lot of other games have weird pacing like that as well. Where you're just like, oh, I could do that, right? Like, I also hate it when games throw a bunch of mechanics at you at the very beginning, and you're like, I don't even know what I'm doing, and you're giving me like 15 different options to do it. I don't what?
Yeah, well, and inevitably you don't do one of them, right? Like you forget one or two, and then you get to a level that requires it. So, I mean, thankfully, Superhot doesn't do that. But on the other side of things, the body swapping mechanic didn't feel necessary for the vast majority of it.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was valuable for the sake of the story. And I'm going to say nothing about that right now. but it was a mechanic that was useful for the story, but wasn't relevant in the gameplay as much as I would like. And I tend to have problems with those sorts of mechanics. If you're going to have something that relates to the story, fantastic. Do that, but own it. Make it a key element of what you're presenting with the material. But it can't just be something that a player can effectively ignore, because then you're ignoring an element of the story.
I can see where it would feel like you're missing part of the story if you didn't do it, but at the same time, I felt like the problem with the body swipe mechanic was it was introduced so late, and you've gotten so used to solving so many of the puzzles without it that you really worked on not doing that. And you know, if it was even introduced like maybe 5 levels sooner, you know, it just a little sooner, maybe before that initial closure, if you know what I'm referring to there. Yeah, if it had been referred, like if it happened before that, it would have been
actually
nice.
if it had been like the last level, that would have been a really great tease.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been a great place for it.
And even just use it as a mechanic to complete the game versus using it as like a combat mechanic. Huh, that's not a bad idea.
Could have gone over a little bit better.
I will agree that it definitely came in late. And to explain, because I'm seeing some responses to the chat, the reason I said zealous is just because, and this might just be for me, but when it comes to playing puzzle games, I kind of I get used to mechanics working a certain way. It feels naturalized, and then sometimes the flip turn works, and sometimes it's like there's some tube you get thrown down at one point in Portal 2, and then it's like, okay, now we're just exploring the environment, and it's like, okay, whatever.
Right.
It doesn't look like anything else we've been doing, but okay, we're just gonna change track. So I can understand that. I do think the body swapping in of itself can be really useful, and a perfect example is actually during Mish's stream, where she was swapping between these different guys in the one office space, which was also another thing that actually got the Matrix brought up. Now I recall, because it was very early Neo, except you get to fight back. But even though there are levels,
tie-in, guys. There's the tie-in. There it goes.
But even though it does kind of click in some places, there are other ones where it felt last minute. I would say the train station in particular, that one is like, I can see how swapping to those guys across the train tracks would be useful, but once again, yeah, it felt ancillary. It felt more like a last minute mission.
Yeah, I literally didn't do it on the train level. I literally did no swapping on the train level.
I feel like the bullets moved too fast and too slow in certain points, if you know what I mean. Like,
so I mean, it's good that it's in the middle of that one, I guess.
Dude's like running, and you're like, okay, I know he's gonna be right there, so I'm gonna pew pew, and just you're so off. You're so off. Like, how were you that far off?
Yeah, the randomness of some of the levels too. Like, I felt like with a puzzle, you should be able to expect certain things, but like the last level, for instance, there was a person that. As the 2 people next to me got shot, where I'd grab a gun, shoot the person to the left, throw the gun to the person at the right, turn around to my left, grab the gun, get ready to grab the person that's coming through the hallway on the right, and the first person I threw the gun at sometimes would run around the front end to pick up one that was like a pistol that was way off, and there was times would pick up the pistol that I threw at its head and then would shoot me, and it's just like, come on, which is it?
Look, if you're gonna throw a gun at my head and I catch it, I'm gonna shoot you with the gun, you know.
But it didn't. I pegged him in the head every single time, right? Like,
I don't think that doesn't kill them though.
No, it just stuns them.
Stuns them.
But it was the inconsistency of sometimes he would pick up the one I tossed at him. There's times where he'd run away and grab a whole different pistol.
That comes down more, I think, to the fact that this is still a shooter. While it is very much a puzzle game, it's sort of like the situation with Fallout 3, where technically this is more an immersive sim / RPG. but it is still a shooter at the end of the day in other respects. And sometimes those elements are going to congeal really well, and sometimes there are people who will actually prefer that it's unpredictable, who would want that little bit more variability. Because, I mean, if you want a locked-in hardcore puzzle thing, there's stuff like The Witness that is just like, it's not going to budge for you whatsoever. Whereas Superhot's, it's a lot more flexible a puzzle. That's why you see combat games being a lot easier to program for. So I would say that's probably why that is. I completely understand being frustrated by it, especially when it's like the 50th time you've died on that section, and it's like, come on, my muscles are at the point of like perfection. There's enough perfection here that I could play a Mega Man game at this point, and I still can't get this guy. But there is some element there. And also, in regards to the bullet movement, I don't know if any of you noticed, but the camera moving, like just turning your head, actually moves time forward. So
a little bit, yeah.
So part of why sometimes bullets seem to go faster than others. It's why, ironically enough, I actually advise that people play the game with a controller. I almost never say that for a shooter, but Superhot may be one of the few, because I got a free copy from Games with Gold. I booted it up again just to be like, okay, it's been a while. Let's see what this is like. And like, this is a lot easier when you're not worried about a slight wrist movement making a bullet plunge into your skull. So it's actually very odd that they chose to launch on PC first rather than pushing for consoles, because I think if they'd gone with consoles first, they might have potentially done better. I can't say for certain, but maybe.
That's hard to say. I think there might be like licensing and such, and that might have prevented them from doing that, but that's a whole different discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, no, go ahead, Dizza.
I would be curious to see, because I didn't play the VR. I don't think any of us have a VR to test it out on. If they did the same sort of thing where time did move as you were looking around.
Yes, it does. It does very, very slowly, but you have to. You actually have to be more mindful in VR, because they basically they track a virtual body of yourself. So yeah, it's honestly harder to dodge bullets. Plus, you're in a stationary position. At least in the version that I got to try at the guy's studio, it was like, yeah, I'm standing here in the corner and just shooting things. The one advantage they do give you in VR is that weapons fly at you, so you can just grab them instead of having to try to reach for them. So that's handy. Pun not intended for once. But that is something very critical, is that still there's the bullets. But there are also some VR games that have been playing with that where you can grab the bullets out of the air. I didn't really get to try that with the setup I was working with, but I'm wondering if they might have implemented that down the road, if not currently, because that would work really well. It would fit perfectly with the fiction and the setting, and I think would have made for a really easier way to deal with just, there's a guy with a shotgun, you either dodge really fast or you're screwed.
So what I was going to bring up before, and then I interrupted Dizza, sorry, was, do you guys feel like when you had a melee weapon, you would miss randomly when you were like close, but then sometimes like the next swing you would hit?
I can explain.
Please do.
There's a targeting. There was a shift in the texture over your target when you are going to hit or when you're not. When you're going to hit, there are diagonal lines going across the enemy's texture. When there isn't, you're going to hit air.
So they give you a mechanics to see that because it's like limited range.
They had to do that, otherwise there was going to be a ton more problems. So the same thing even applies to bullets. You can tell if you're going to be able to cut a bullet by aiming at it, and if it's the right texture, then.
Okay, maybe I was just not paying attention to that, because there, especially on that drop down level where you.
I imagine that would make things a little more challenging.
Not chairs, the stairs, and yeah, I didn't know. So like there would be times where I'm like about to freaking ninja this guy in half, and I completely whiff, and I'm like, I'm literally right behind you, and I don't move, and I hit him again, or I swing and I hit him, and I'm like, what?
I just love that mental image. I see someone in an action movie dropping down, swinging the sword, going all kung fu hustle, and like the sword breaks or something, and the goon doesn't even notice.
That's how it felt. It was like a very Deadpool moment.
Yeah, I remember in a couple of levels feeling like I couldn't do as much with the sword as I wanted to, and then I think I opted to throw the sword and pick up the sword and throw it again.
Yeah, I did the same.
Yeah,
and it worked brilliantly, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it felt like more like a throwing missile at that point, like a sword throwing missile.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, so good, so good. I think that's probably one of my most favorite things about the game. Is just throwing the sword through people, like, and this is something that I actually was talking about with a couple of friends in a Twitch channel last night, because I was talking about it with them. The movement feels really. Did you guys feel like it was
methodical?
More. It felt like it was like you were walking in sand or something for a bit of it, or most of it. If you moved, you felt like you were like sloshing through like waist high water or something. Mouse acceleration, but movement.
I agree, and I think it was done purposefully.
Oh no, it's definitely done purposely.
Yeah, for the sake of making the time control a little bit more effective, I think they wanted to slow you down before they said, "Hey, you're going to be rushing down these steps," and give you that sense that, hey, the acceleration's starting to happen, guys. Get ready for it. It did feel like a slowdown, but it didn't bother me. I think because of just feeling like it was more of a puzzle to begin with. Like I was spending that time anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Plus,
there were only.
Alexa, go. Okay, fine.
Listen
to your Jim Carrey. All right. So basically, I agree completely with Dizza on that point, and also I just would say, also in regards to the movement. Part of the reason you move so slowly is, have you ever watched the instant replay once you finish a level? Because you move fast. You are basically constantly in slow motion. That's part of why the movement is the way it is, because if you actually moved at the speed that you are really moving at, you're Quicksilver. Or John Wick.
Choice. Or Neo.
Although with the body swap mechanic, can we admit that it's a little bit more like Smith?
Well, yeah, absolutely it was. Yeah, that's kind of what I felt with that.
There weren't too many times where I was actually annoyed with the movement, except there was this one level where you start out, and I'm sure you guys will remember that level because it probably took you a couple of tries, but you start in like a corridor, and then there's stairs, and then there's a dude like running at you. There's a guy. It's with the crowbar. I think it's like the first when they bring the crowbar in, and so you have to like grab the stuff on the left and then throw it at the person, and then grab the crowbar and smack them. There is like a corner where two walls meet, but then there's like a little opening, and it's like the alleyway to the left and the alleyway straight where they start spawning, and there's like a dumpster, and I got stuck in that little corridor, that little alcove, and I died like 4 times in a row because I got stuck on a wall, and the movement just wouldn't let. I didn't know I was stuck because I was moving so slow.
Collision tech is an issue. That I will give you complete kudos on that. Yeah, there are moments in the game where it feels like you can very clearly see the invisible walls instead of what the actual model looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I just wanted to get that off my chest because like I was like, this is dumb. It didn't happen too much, but when it did happen, it was like a slap in the face. Like you knew it was happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, Elijah?
Yeah, I'd say I was about to say, I think good now in terms of gameplay. So now, it's time for spoiler. And the story.
See,
Wow.
I'm not gonna have too much to say on this, but go on.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
I will kick things off just basically from what I get, which is it's a very 90s hacker-inspired world where there's corporations manipulating people, and the mind can very easily interface with computers, apparently. But it's also sort of set during the present day because there's VR headsets and stuff like that. I really loved a lot of the extra lore stuff you can find. I mean, there's someone wrote whole conversations out, and I love that as a writer. That just, it would be like the sort of catnip side content to work on, because there's some really, and the extra little details to get you immersed in the world actually did a fantastic job. Before I really started the game, I was like, I did a couple levels, I poked around in all the extra content and kept bashing my head trying to figure out how to unlock the 2 locked things, which apparently you have to unlock by glitching the levels. And there are terminals hidden around the game, because that's just how meta they were willing to go for some of the stuff that you can find. But above all else, is like, this is a lot of extra effort being put in. There's someone really cared about what they're going for here. And I did like the part where you have to actually close the game and start again. I can think of only like 2 other games that have done that. That is nicely done, and less alarmingly done than, say, Batman Arkham Asylum, where it was like, oh crap, did I break my console? Here it just was sort of like, no, go away, be done. I was a teenager. I thought I had legitimately broken it.
The Psycho Mantis part in Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, I had that
controller port too.
I see you've been playing Super Bomberman.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, the part where I got to where the game closed, like I was at a point where was that it? That couldn't have been it.
Right? I was the exact same way. The first time that it closed, I was like, well, I beat it. Okay, I'm gonna tell you guys something. This game did not keep me playing. I would do like a level or 2 and then easily get distracted, check Twitter, check my friend's friend's stream, or do anything else. I don't know why. It didn't click with me, so I couldn't really sit and play the whole thing in one sitting.
Sure.
And it's only like a 4.5 hour game. Like, it's an average of 4.5 hours on how long to beat, with like the full story and the side stuff. And I couldn't, I don't know why. I could not enjoy it as much as and that's not to say that it wasn't enjoyable. Words are hard. But I couldn't sit and play it. Something about it just didn't click with me, and I don't know what exactly it was, but I don't know. I don't think you guys had that problem.
No, I definitely didn't. I think the thing that kept me going on it, and the mechanics were fairly good, and I like the novel.
I agree.
The novelty of it, but I wanted to know more about the story. They tease in the main story well enough where I'm like, okay, I've got to know what this next piece is. Here I am typing my stuff along and going into chat, and then all of a sudden, holy cow, the things that I've been typing in here, which in fairness hasn't actually been typing, it's just randomly pressing the keyboard, end up becoming something else. And I'm like, okay, this is not what I was expecting. I thought this was just going to be fun. Look at me playing around with stuff. Moments like that really made me curious where they were going to go with it. Mm-hmm. And as such, I definitely wanted to go forward. And I think that pushed me through, even though it sounds like I had more difficulty with some of the puzzles than you did. And maybe that's part of it too, where like, hey, I got the sense of accomplishment from completing this really tough puzzle. Now I really have to see what's going on next. So there's a bit of a back and forth on that too. But the story, I think, was the primary compelling reason to continue.
You know what helped me get through the story a bit and gameplay a bit?
You were streaming it?
I streamed it. I had an audience to feed off of.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a mistake on my part of not streaming the game and just trying to play it through with myself.
So a recommendation for all of our viewers who are watching this right now:
stream your games.
Yeah, no, I think
it's hard for me to play a game without streaming nowadays. So
Mhm.
I need to play a game with people, and if I'm playing a game by myself, it's because I'm watching a podcast or I'm zoning out. And so playing that game, I think that was like a me issue, not the game so much. I like the game. So anyway, I'm sorry, Elijah. I totally derailed this whole segment.
No, this is I actually have something to add about this, because the thing is, as much as I binged it the first time, both out of professional obligation and because I just was that interested in it, you remember how I said I replayed it on Xbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I only would do a few levels at a time on Xbox. After having played it, I completely can understand that, because like a puzzle game, you don't really want to do a ton of puzzles all at once. You don't usually binge that. It's actiony enough that it can keep you engaged, but realistically, especially once you know the story and everything else, and that isn't surprising for you, then the replay value is more in the additional modes of play that you unlock at the end of the game and stuff like that, in the challenge mode where you just fight hordes of enemies. That's the stuff that genuinely keeps you coming back, which is why I think even the developers kind of recognize that, because their most recent Superhot game, Mind Control Delete, is a roguelite version of it. So you just go through randomized levels. They make it so that there's at least some greater thing to dig into, because after a while it's the same song and dance. And again, this is why I really think they should have had a level editor.
I watched a YouTuber who was really, really addicted to the game play it a lot when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like his kids would play it too with him and stuff. So I watched them play it a lot, and I don't know. Like I guess it's not to say that I knew the levels or I knew the puzzles or whatever. But it just didn't catch me. And again, like I've said this a few times on the podcast, I'm not a puzzle guy. I don't like puzzle games. I hate point and clicks. I hate adventure games, and I hate puzzle games. So, as a puzzle game, it was an interesting game that kept me in like wanting to go back to finish the next levels. But all the other stuff, the story, the lore, didn't keep me interested in it. I think and what I don't understand that, because it's actually good. Like the writing is fantastic. They didn't do anything wrong with the writing, but I don't know what it was. Maybe I wasn't in the right mood when I was playing it. I don't know. I don't know, but it's definitely a me issue, not the game issue.
Yeah.
Just fair.
Yeah, it's definitely the sort of experience where it feels best to get into the story when you're in it by yourself, because you can immerse yourself, you can relate to the character a little bit more that way. And I feel like the way that you enjoy games and the way that a lot of people enjoy games is being able to share it with friends and all of this. And once you do that, you're outside of it. So why would it engage you in the same way, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, if I can say one last thing in regards to just bouncing off of it, I think it's completely fair to have an experience where you bounce off of Superhot, because it comes at you full force with what it's going for. I mean, like, it doesn't reveal everything, but it doesn't make this isn't like a Pony Island experience where it's like, oh, we're gonna do this thing and now we're doing a completely different thing. It's like, this is Superhot, bitches, and this is what we're freaking doing. And then there's just really no changing from that.
I mean, they bring that to you in the introduction. They bring that to you in the menu. What they are doing
is just drenched in it.
Well, it's not to say that I don't like the game or that I think it's a bad game or anything like that. It's just like, for whatever reason, when I was playing it, it just didn't capture my attention the way it did you guys. And I feel like that was going to be like a point of contention in this podcast of, for me, it didn't click with me. And And I don't know why exactly, you know, like I said, maybe I was just in like not the right kind of mood at the time, or maybe I just don't like puzzle games as much as I say. Maybe I really don't like them. Maybe I really hate puzzle games. I don't know. But it just didn't capture my attention to the point where, like I said, I would do 1 or 2 puzzle or 1 or 2 levels, and then I'll go do something else. And then I'll like alt tab back in and do another like 1 or 2 puzzles. And I think that's probably part of why I wasn't enjoying the lore and the story, is because I just didn't care. You know?
Mm-hmm.
I do have one last closing bit of discussion in regards to the story, though, and that is, can anyone actually definitively say what happened there at the end? And I want to hear everyone else's theorizing before I say anything.
So, theory about what happened at the end? I mean, the conclusion that I drew is that, you know, our mind kind of got uploaded and cloned into this digital mainframe. And then after that, after you're already there, well, you can have as many copies of it as you want. So the hive mind of the system says, bodies are disposable. Let's get rid of your body. You don't need it now anyways.
I agree with that. I'm pretty sure that. So when you're playing and you get those messages of them saying like, you need to stop it right now, it's because, well, you're taking resources away from the system by playing, because you're the player, and you're taking resources up, and the system wants you to stop. But for whatever reason, you like kill off your body because your mind is already uploaded. That's my theory, I guess.
Pretty close to what my whole grasp of it was that they basically were slowly just sapping your brain out into the internet. I'm not sure, though, if it's like a government system, though. It almost seems like
I don't think
it's
it was
the internet going sentient sort of thing.
I think so, too.
That's kind of what I got out of that. And then once you've been uploaded, there is no need for body anymore, because your existence is already elsewhere, and you're just eliminating any possibilities of it being brought back to a existence that can be eliminated.
Which was kind of a thing that year in games. I won't say where the other one happens because it's a huge spoiler for it, but there was actually a horror game that came out just around the same time that had a very similar premise about things. For some reason, virtual societies and consciousnesses was just a really hot thing in 2014.
Yeah.
Well, like Second Life was a pretty big deal. It had been around for already like 7 years or something like that. So it had to gain a lot of traction. Then
Resurgence of the Matrix of Deus Ex.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that around that time.
Yeah.
I have another gripe.
Oh,
please.
Here we go.
Okay, and it's not really that big of a deal, but the constant flashing text made me want to punch my fist through my monitor. I really didn't like the constant flashing text when you're like focusing on something and it's like blah, 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 and I'm like, wait, what? I didn't even have time to read what that said.
Yeah. It's subliminal messages.
The goal, though. It's for disorientation more than anything else.
Well, they succeeded.
The question is, did they actually get their desired effect, which is, I'm upset about this, and as such, I'm not enjoying it pop up at any point.
Didn't really bug me, so apparently I'm the odd one out on. Like, I liked it in Splinter Cell Conviction, although it was a lot more subtle and nuanced in Splinter Cell Conviction. Here it is a lot more flashy.
I liked when like the levels and stuff would kind of get jumbled and then like very pixelated and stuff. That was cool. I don't, however, like flashing text with bright lights, and I don't like that because it is disorienting. It is, I feel like maybe seizure inducing in some people. That's not okay. That's really not okay. The game already is very bright, and if you're flashing bright and text at somebody who's already like focused on something else, like that's weird. I wasn't a fan. That's something that really bothered me.
a seizure careful mode would have been a good idea, because that's something that games in general just need to be better about. And weirdly is a bigger issue with indie games than with AAA. AAA tends to nail it down, in my experience. You can usually down the brightnesses. Indie stuff, there's a lot more blatant flashing, either because of limitations of the lighting engine or just because they don't think of it. So I agree that they need to be better about that. I still think that it actually accomplished the effect for at least some of us, but I can also understand y'all not liking it.
Yeah,
I get that they were trying to mess with people and stuff like that. That was like the whole point of it. I get that, but at the same time, it was really annoying. I don't know. I just didn't really like it. I didn't appreciate it. I felt like I was just being like punched in the face a little bit.
Yeah, I think that was a big miss. And artistically, there were a lot of pieces of imagery that were gorgeous. Like the fact that we had loading levels. Remember the loading levels at the beginning of the game where you were going through and you're like, okay, what's this white circle that's coming on? And then you eventually go into like a transition segment where you're actually in that area and you're walking yourself through it. Moments like that, that say, hey, we're not just doing aesthetics. We want this to be part of the story too. Absolutely convincing, absolutely fascinating. And I'd love to see more games that implement things like that in those little small segments where you can just put that extra piece in. I mean, same thing with, having the menus be MS-DOS. I
like
think
that
was a nice touch.
I agree. You're going to hate the example I'm going to give for where I was like, yeah, I can think of another game where it does that well.
Michelle, get ready to close his camera and all that. Go on, Elijah. What?
The other game I can think of that does this really well, besides Dead Space, would be Alone in the Dark 2008. It actually has a very... I'm sorry! I didn't plan for this! This is completely spontaneous! But it's... I mean, that's the only other game I can think of where it's like they really tried to do... Well, okay, to be fair, Silent Hill Shadow Memories also did it. There's certain very niche games that have tried to do this, and I'm wondering why that always ends up having to be niche that does it the most, because it's not like AAA can't do that. It's just they don't, like Mass Effect 3 Citadel had a lot of little touches like that, but the main game didn't. It's just something that I guess it always ends up on the cutting floor.
Nish, you missed your chance to terminate call.
Yeah, I know, right? No, you got a picture of my Magic Card inventory in place of it for like 2 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few user interfaces out there that I think integrate that well. One of the big things with Persona 5, which I've been playing recently, that it got a lot of applause for in 2017 was that it matched the aesthetic of the game in general. That, hey, you're a high school student in Japan. Yeah, all of your stuff is going to be dressed up with all of these stars and flashy animations and fit in that. And like everything matched it, including combat design, things like that. Here, it's the piece of the menus, and I think the minimalism that they use to describe everything, where it really did make you feel like, yeah, are you in the 90s? Are you in the modern age? You're getting a little bit of both. You're getting a very digitized world view of what's going on, and that fits the storyline well. I'm trying to think of any other examples that are close to it, but you're right, there are very few.
And I think at this point we're reaching the third stage of our discussion, which is just in general our favorite and least favorite moments. And to start things off, I do just want to say real quick, that elevator moment, huh?
What are you talking about? What elevator moment?
Shut up. You don't get to talk.
No, you know what? The elevator moment is my favorite moment.
All right, Mish, you can now cut him out.
Wow. Wow.
It's okay to like things. It's okay.
No, I have opinions, and if you disagree, you're wrong. Look, no, it's you're allowed to have opinions, but if your opinion is different than mine, you know, it's okay to have wrong opinions.
So, everybody else, once again, everybody else go first. I will wait for last. Favorite, least favorite, anything else that you really want to jot down and talk
Mish,
about.
tell us. I want to know your favorite moment.
My favorite moment. Oh gosh. Way to put me on the spot here. I got to the. I think what I found to be my favorite point is that reboot, when you rebooted the game, and it was a whole different like it just took the meta and what was going on with the game and the storytelling of the game to a whole different level, and I think that's what I really enjoyed about it. Because any other game, like if it closes, you just reopen it and it just kind of pick up where you left off. No. This reboot was coded where once you started the game again, it actually picked up the story right where you left off in a way that it was actually part of the story. Closing the game was part of the story. And that was probably my favorite part. Once I realized that is what was actually going on.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Favorite?
Mm-hmm. Least favorite? Oh gosh. I don't think there was really anything that really griped at me too much. Trying to get that last level and actually remembering all the mechanics, I would think was just frustrating, but I don't think I disliked it. I don't think there was anything I truly disliked overall. I mean, there are points of frustration. There's like really, but there wasn't anything I was truly disappointed with overall and disliked. Yeah, that's my answer. There you go.
All right.
Thank you.
Go.
Thank you.
Yeah. Favorite part, I will say, really comes down to the way that they told the story as the game was being played. Moments like the reboot, moments like the going back in and DOS prompts and having chat where you're like, oh, here's an IRC client and here are these people randomly chatting. Hi, Kyle's mom. Like moments like that where they're trying to establish realism, I thought was really, really cool. And I think their imagery was fantastic. I think the combat mechanics were a close second. While there were a couple of moments where I'm like, I really wish that this was not as difficult as the elevator room. It was fine. What my worst moment, I think, was having the overwhelming lack of decision. And I know that that's part of the story to a certain extent, but on the spot, in the situations where it didn't necessarily have to be the story, like on the final level, I just wanted to knock out all of the people in this room and be done with them and have like some alternate ending available where I don't upload myself into the system. I spent time killing probably like 70 units before it was like, no, you're really going to have to upload here. Yeah. All of these comments that you're giving me are because you're forcing me into this decision and nothing else. Like, I feel like they had a lot of opportunity to play around and do more than just the core message they wanted.
Yeah.
Even just the pyramid, actually being able to take out the consciousness, that could have been a completely different ending.
Right?
Yes.
You guys know where you're in the cell for the first time, and it's like, we can keep you here forever. And you're like, okay. And then they're like, okay, time to leave. And you're like, I sat there for like 5 minutes, just jumping around. No, you have to do it. You have to do it.
Yeah, there was one narrative and only one narrative, and there was no other ways to deviate from it.
Maybe I'm expecting too much like the Stanley Parable, which I have yet to play, which I will be playing on stream.
Good.
Oh, yes. Fantastic. I want to be there when you do that one.
Okay, it's going to be sometime this week, but yeah. I expected there to be a little bit more to the story, So when, you know, they're like, do this, and I'm like, well, I'm not gonna. What are you gonna do? Nothing, because you have to do it to progress the story. So I was really disappointed in that.
No, that's fair.
That's the one thing I would wait for, whether or not I'm going to purchase a sequel, which is in production. Or sorry, in development, not in production yet. But
Same difference.
if they show that there's branching storyline, if they're showing that there is some level of autonomy that we get to play around with, I think that it's going to grow the basis of the world they've made so much more, to the point where it really would be a fascinating game to play around with again. Until then, I mean, I'm not that interested in endless mode. I'm not really that interested in the challenges. I don't think I'm going to go back to this game because I've already gotten what I wanted out of the story.
That's fair.
And unless there's a good story, compelling reason for me, I'm not going to be interested in that sequel, because it's in its nice little package already, and I'm good with that.
And now it comes to me. Okay, and I'm now going to try very hard here to not be you. My favorite moment is actually Hippo's most frustrating one, which is the bit where you jump over the balcony. I loved that sequence. I had a blast because
I actually liked it. I liked it. I had a lot of problems with it, but not just because I had problems with it didn't mean I didn't like it.
It's okay, dude. It's okay. And I would just say,
I will fight you. I will fight you. I like the elevator, so fight me. You know.
That elevator sucked. I didn't have as much an issue with the ending as I think anybody else. I still died a few times, but I remember it never getting to the point where I was like super swearing or anything. So that went okay. I actually prefer the combat in most cases towards the end of the game. A lot of those levels I like, except for the one on the construction site where there's just basically a spiral downwards. That level just sucks. Endless mode was fun though. When I tinkered around with it, it's not something that I've religiously come back to or anything. Devil Daggers is way better at offering what was there, but as its own, it was fine. And least favorite moment. I think my least favorite moment was actually when I ran out of things to find in the side stuff. Because like what Diz is saying, once the story runs out, as interesting as the initial gameplay hook is, the story is what carries everything through. So as soon as you lose that, it just sort of demoralizes you. And also, the sheer amount of challenges available was actually not like, you can unlock more and more by doing all these different things. Yeah, I already played through the game. I don't want to play through it 20 times, 20 different ways that are going to vary in fun. It's the same sort of issue that happened with Evolve's leveling system, where it just is like, this isn't going to incentivize me to go further. This is doing the opposite. If you just let me choose what would be fun, okay. Or if we don't talk
about Evolve.
Oh, trust me, there was no problem there. That thing gave me an actual panic attack. That's the only game that has given me a panic attack. It actually triggered my anxiety that hard back during the beta test, being the monster.
You don't get to choose what's actually fun. We'll decide for you.
Yeah. So that I would say, yeah, it was after everything sort of wrapped up. That was my least favorite moment for SuperHot. That was the game's own fault, not me accidentally checking a thing, so I had to play through the whole game again. In terms of the actual game stuff, it was sad. It was like a sadness sandwich. You had this really nice thing, and now there's nothing left, really. I mean, you could technically eat that pickle that they offered next with it, but you don't want to eat the pickle. You don't even ask for the damn pickle.
Pickles are gross, though, you know?
They're spawned from hell, yeah.
Small pickles are nice. Big pickles that you could use as construction material are not.
Are they too spicy for you, Michelle?
They're just
so
gross.
So this is the spot where I am the only one who the opposite opinion here regarding pickles. Larger pickles are where it's at.
Oh my.
They don't even have to be super crunchy. Like I prefer them crunchy, but I will handle
I'm gonna go on with what I was gonna say about the game.
Please.
So my favorite part of the game was when you can throw a ceramic dog. I'm not gonna lie. That was, I made sure to hit people in the face with it. It was so satisfying to pick up the dog and just chuck it at somebody's head. It was, and then for them to be like, "Oh no, I'm dying from it." Oh, so good, so good. My least favorite part about Superhot is the constant going in and out of the levels. Constantly, every single one, you get the little rectangle of lights going in and out constantly. I really disliked that, and I understand that it's like a load screen or whatever, but it's just, I did not like that. Also, the flashing text, not a fan.
Super hot.
Also, that was a little annoying too when you're watching the replay.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, can you please not for like just one replay, please?
No, absolutely not.
Of course, you can't.
It's what helped make the game happen is that it became a meme when they first did it in the very.
I know.
Damn, it was like super hot.
It's on brand, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that it's on brand, and it got stuck in people's heads, and then they would say it to their friends, and then their friends would say it to their friends, and then it'd be like, oh, I have to get that game. What the hell?
Yeah,
is
it's the most
Superhot?
innovative shooter that I've ever played, or that I played in years. Like, their branding was on point in several places.
Yeah, it was.
They knew what they were doing.
I need to make a game, and I'm gonna make like a little jingle that gets stuck in people's heads.
Well, I mean, did you check out some of the trailers that they did leading up to release? Had something in the game like pixelated in the background. In some of the menus you can actually find. And I use that. I normally, back in that time period, I did a musical intro for my reviews. And it was like, no, I'm just using this thing from this trailer because it was fantastic. It was immensely on brand. I'll link the video because it's astounding. They had this perfect thing. They had the Stephen Hawking robot voice narrating it all. It's like, this is horrendously creepy, and I'm intrigued. What is wrong with me, and what is wrong with you? So, speaking of intrigue, do each of you recommend or not recommend Super Hot, Super Hot, Super Hot? Or is it super not?
Super hot or super not? I would say that if there's any elements of puzzle games that someone would enjoy, if they want to play a shooting game that isn't just their average run-of-the-mill like Arma, COD, Battlefield like game, and it changes up the play style.
Arma's not run-of-the-mill. Arma?
Arma's not run-of-the-mill.
Well, no. But I mean,
COD for sure. I get that.
I guess what I'm trying to say is like, it's more of what you would expect from shooting games, though, right? And this is not. That's kind of where I'm implying with that statement. This is not what
I definitely understand what you're saying. I would only counter it because I have like hundreds of hours in Arma, and it's very realistic.
You would.
Yeah, it's a simulator. It's not COD, but I do understand what you're saying.
Right. It's still that the general idea of what a shooting game is still in that particular game. This is not. This.
Yeah, it's completely different.
Yeah, this is a puzzle game that has an element of shooting. That said, if that is your type of game, then I would recommend it.
I'm going to place some dollar amounts on this. I will say that if you are the sort of person who enjoys a good shooter and you're looking for something not run of the mill, $5 to $7, probably worth it for you. If you are more of a strategy puzzle person, you might be happy for it at 10. Now, if you got it for free because it just happened to pop up and you're on Twitch and you do all of the Twitch Prime stuff and you picked it up when you did, and it's sitting in your library, take it for a spin. I don't think anybody would do poorly to try it and see it and have that experience for themselves. You're really not spending a lot of time for it to have that, and you'll find out whether or not you're interested in a lot of stuff, right? You're gonna find if you're more interested in the storyline, that's gonna be you're primed and ready for a lot of dystopian future. If you're enjoying the puzzle element of it, there are a lot of other puzzle games that may be interesting for you. If you just like the fact that you get to go stabby and enjoy the aesthetics, there are great games for that too. But it's a good like litmus test, I think. If you have interest in any of those areas, to check out the other ones.
I would like to build off of Diz's I was going to say argument, but it's not really a pitch. It is $25 on Steam.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty expensive for a 4.5-hour game, in my opinion.
That's fair.
There is a lot to it. There's a lot of lore and stuff like that. If you're into that kind of thing, and you want to go explore and read a bunch of stuff about what's going on in that universe, that world, that's totally fine. But $25 to me seems pretty steep. I got it for free because Amazon Prime #sellout. I am an indie amplifier for Twitch, so I stream the Twitch Prime games. But it had I not picked this game up for free and went into it for $25, I might have had some buyer's remorse. From my experience, as you guys have heard, my experience very much differs from all the rest of the three people here, the three co-hosts with us. I enjoyed the game. I liked the game, but I don't necessarily, for me, know if it's worth the $25 price tag. For free, 100%. What are you doing with your life? If you got it for Amazon Prime, freaking play it. It's good. You might get a little frustrated, but it's good. Go do it. What are you doing?
Yeah. I'm going to leapfrog off of that. Sorry.
I was just about to say I want to amend my statement and agree with what they're both saying, is that the full price point is not something I would recommend it at. Like, Steam sale is definitely the way to go on this one.
And my leapfrogging off this is a very interesting point of itself, and it's something that really needs to be considered because we're now entering an age where there are a lot more games that are in the $20 to $30 range, and we're working out what's valuable. Because I'm a guy who spent $30 full price for Hellblade because, I mean, it's not much longer, but it feels a lot more substantive, and that's the thing we really need to work out is value, because it's not specifically objective length. It's not like
agreed. I 100% agree with you.
Yep.
And there are games like Hellblade and Echo that are nailing it, and they're like, this is fair. Superhot, I completely agree. When I was playing, like, man, this is going to be an amazing $15 game. And then I saw the price tag and launch is like, holy shit, that's a lot more than I was expecting.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's definitely a game that I feel a lot of people can sink time into. I feel like you could really enjoy this game. I feel like it could really get you interested in the up and coming development of the new game. What's it called that they're doing?
They're doing, I believe they're working on Superhot 2, but they've not said more than just like the barest.
Okay. Well, I definitely think that you guys could really enjoy the game. But at a $25 price point, maybe wait.
Yeah.
Maybe wait for a sale. But definitely, like, the devs do deserve money. Like, they do deserve to get paid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, I got it for free, and I was like, this is great. So.
This is raising one last question. Give me 1 second here. I'm curious what they should have.
While he's figuring that out, I think one other thing I'd probably point out is if it is a game that you enjoyed, Frozen Synapse is a great related game that I think anyone would enjoy too. I'm just going to add that in there, just because I feel like the two are very closely related.
Mm-hmm. So it's clear the developers themselves have even learned this, because Mind Control Delete is only $12 right now. So they are learning. They are realizing that, okay, we charged a bit too much. I've seen it going on sale regularly, but it was like, wait a second, did they, because that's still even in early access, and sometimes people hike up the price or lower the price depending on early access, and in this case, it seems they've adjusted things. They slashed the price basically in half.
Okay, well that actually makes me more interested and more open to picking up another title from them. So even though, look, I like, even though I don't always click on games, I like checking them out. I like trying new games. I like trying new things. People put hundreds of hours into these games, and I would like to give them a shot. Even if I don't like them, at least I have a reason why I don't like them, instead of just not playing them, you know?
Fair.
That's the concept of the Game Club.
Exactly. That's what we're going for here, is that we get to talk about neat stuff, and everyone gets to be a bit outside of their comfort zone, which means, yes, people besides Elijah are going to be suggesting really weird things.
Please don't let Crafty do Mist. Please don't let Crafty do Mist.
Right now, she's still waiting on me to finish Cognition, so we'll see.
Crafty, I love you, but I don't want to play Mist. I'll bow out on that one. You guys can have a guest, or you can have Crafty.
We'll have Crafty at
can
that
replace
point.
me for that.
That's the thing I wanted to make clear. You can see it behind the scenes, but now everyone can see it. It's like, yeah, if a game is just like too outside of it, or we can't play it for whatever reason, like we lack the console, someone can swap out. So that in general, we're gonna just be having fun talking about this stuff.
Cool. We got to figure out the scheduling for the next one, because there's some traveling and conventions coming up very, very soon for some of us, and that will also be impacting the Noobcast, but we'll figure that out. Before we close out, do we want to announce what we're playing for the next episode?
Yes. So next time, if you want to join along with us and for Spooky October, we're going to be playing Observer by and then I blanked on the developer's name. But Observer, it's by the same people who did Layers of Fear. It's this cyberpunk Krakow, Poland dystopia. Has some of the best voice acting you're probably ever going to hear, and like especially have an indie game. It doesn't look indie. It's not too long ago come to consoles, as well as having been on PC for a while. And basically think of it as Blade Runner meets Nightmare on Elm Street.
Bluebird?
So this should be really fun. It should be really interesting. One I've been wanting to get to for a while. And
I've been wanting to play it for... I wanted to play it when it came out last year, but I never touched it. And a friend of mine, a friend of ours, a mutual friend, at least between me and Mish, he streamed it. He streamed it, but I saw maybe like 2 to 5 minutes of it, and I was very confused. And so I'm very interested to see what it brings. I'm going to play it sometime very, very soon. So and it's funny because you guys were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna play Observer," and I was like, oh, I was gonna play that anyway.
Lucky coincidence.
Coincidence.
All right.
Wait, which person was that?
Nox.
Oh. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Friend of the channel for sure. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I suppose with that said, before we go, we are going to do the traditional Noobcast thing at the end of the show. We're going to shill ourselves and sell out a little bit. So we're just going to talk about what we got coming up on our channels, where to find us, and the stuff like that. Dizzy, fire away. What you got coming up? Where can we find you?
All right. This last week, I streamed a ton of Persona 5. I played every day but Saturday. Was very proud of that. I'm trying to get some regularity. So stop on by on most evenings at my my Twitch channel. That's just twitch.tv/Dizzy. And you'll be able to see what's going on there. We are on our 3rd palace, which means that we'll probably have another 14 years of gameplay to go. But
this is why I will never touch a Persona game.
Yeah, right.
It continues to be fun. And a lot of one-hit kills. A lot of surprise one-hit kills. and just getting absolutely decimated, which it's a lot of fun. It's fun to see when we succeed. It's much better when we fail. Check that out on the stream.
Cool. Elijah, what do you got coming up?
Well, on the YouTube channel, I'm going to be talking about the Fear series. I'm going to be talking about Fear 1 and why it actually is very scary because you have a shotgun instead of the whole penumbra thing of not having weapons. Why Fear 2 sucks, and why Fear 3 may be the best party game you've ever played. There's going to be some extra stuff coming down the line that's going to be horror themed. And to those of you who were already expressing to me over Discord and other things, please, something besides Star Wars. We've had a lot of Star Wars. Rest assured, we're going to have a little break on the Star Wars. And yes, Alone in the Dark 2008 is getting a video. Guaranteed.
Hopefully you can get all your Alone in the Dark out on video.
But I just want to say also there will be more live streams. I apologize for Blood Knight's ending so soon on last
what was last night?
There is no reason to apologize for Blood Knight's ending, let me tell you.
I got the good ending by making all the evil choices. I have so many questions, and here's the I learned now, not only did Deck 13 survive this, that they're the guys behind the Surge. I didn't realize, but they're the ones who developed the same people who made Blood Knights are developing the Surge. So now I finally have an excuse to really want to look at the Surge besides, hey, you liked Dismemberment in Dead Space. This one has Dismemberment. And I was like, oh my gosh, the people who did Blood Knights did this? Now I want to play it. And that's probably something wrong with me. So, but there will be more streams of terrible games and obscure games coming on Fridays. God help me, I'm going to try and make sure that happens consistently every week.
Cool.
Follow on Twitter at ParadigmFallen for that. Unabridged Gamer on YouTube. And yeah. All right. Take it away, Hippo.
Hippo, what do you got coming up?
I actually decided to do something a little bit different this week. I put together a list of like 15 games that I might be interested in checking out on the stream this week. And I let the community decide on what to play. So I guess we're going to be playing more 2 Point Hospital, Mega Aquarium, The Stanley Parable, and Frostpunk.
Okay.
So we're going to be playing those games. You can find all that information out on my Twitch channel. I have like all the Twitters and all the stuff. Or you could just go to the hippo.wtf. It is my website. It's literally a legitimate website. If you go to that is my website. I promise you will find everything you need to know.
I feel it answers a lot of questions.
And yeah, that we're going to be playing a lot of those types of games, very much management. And Frostpunk just released a new update, a new challenge mode or update or something like that. I haven't really looked into it, but they released it last week, and I want to go back to that game because it is a really, really fun game. So I want to go check that out.
Cool. Awesome. Coming up on my channel, we have got Guild Wars Tuesday coming up on Tuesday of all, right? Who would have thought it? Where we'll be doing world bosses. We'll be talking about the things to do and not to do. Usually I'm joined by,
there.
I was going to say, we're usually joined by Hippo on that as well. It's usually a good time. It's like a mini noobcast almost. So we go on some
it's like a 4-hour just rant about random stuff.
Yeah. That one, we definitely have a lot of conversation going on with the chat at the same time. I know that the podcast, we don't as much, but there, oh yeah, it happens. So I got that coming up, and then on Wednesdays we're continuing with games that have got 0 playtime. They're good games, don't get me wrong. I'm really bad at initiating gameplay because it's like, I don't know what to do.
I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, so we don't know what exactly it will be, but on Wednesday it will be a game that I have never played before, and it should be interesting to see what happens with that. Last week was SUPERHOT, and didn't regret that decision. You always default to your comforts. Yeah, that's exactly what. Yeah, I'm gonna actually note that point. I'm in my comfort zone a lot. This is getting me out of it. So that's coming up, and then a week from today we have the Noobcast podcast returning in its full format.
My birthday!
On Hippo's birthday.
It's literally my birthday.
It will be me, Dizzy, Hipponymous, and one additional guest. We're working out the details for that person, and hopefully we'll have it soon. And that's all, Miss Michelle Jean. On the Twitch, you're here, so whatever. But Twitter and the likes as well. That said, for the Unabridged Gamer, for Dizzy and Hipponymous, my name is Miss Michelle Jean. Thank you so much for watching the Noobcast Game Club, and we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.